So guys, what is going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good in the hood. So guys, Joe Saunders has finally broke his silence, has finally come out and told us, or given us some information about what happened during that fight, or giving his take on what happened. And, you know, a lot of people were asking me to do a video about this, and I didn't want to do a video about it because I was like, well, he hasn't really said anything, so why should I make a video about something? You know, it's old news. But now that he's obviously said something about it, he's come out and given his take, I thought I'd do a video. Joe Saunders basically said that Ben Davison in the corner made a decision to stop the fight. You know, Ben Davison spoke to Billy Joe, and they, you know, basically said, we're pulling you out of the fight. And to that, Billy Joe shook his head and said, you know, no way, like, I don't want to stop. Also, he said, people start saying that he quit. He would never quit. You know, his corner's there doing a job. He was fighting for 1 minute and 20 seconds with a broken eye socket in 3 places. And he would never quit. He's a warrior. And he said a whole bunch of other things. He also said that he's considering retirement. He spoke to his dad and he's 50-50 on whether to retire. So let's break all these points down. Listen, Billy Joe's no quitter. I said it before that I think the people that are having a go at him are the ones that didn't like him. And like I said this before when I was saying Canelo will beat him and Canelo's a better fighter than him. I personally said to everybody that I'm not a Billy Joe hater. I'm just telling you how it is. Canelo's a more all-rounded fighter. He's the better fighter and he'll win the fight. And a lot of people thought that I was a Billy Joe hater, but now you'll realize that I'm not a Billy Joe hater because I'm actually saying it how it is. He's not a quitter. The right decision was made. You know, I think the reason why people are tearing him down because of the things that he said about Daniel Dubois. You know, the way he said Daniel Dubois, you know, he quit. He goes, he would never take a knee, or he would never, even if his 2 eye sockets were broken, his hand was broken, his nose was broken, his jaw was broken, he'd still continue. And I remember Teddy Atlas on his podcast pointing this out, that, you know, this isn't other people's word. This is his own words, you know. So the problem is with Billy Joe, the problem is he spoke a big game prior. And what I mean is, you can talk a big game, right? It's a bit like saying that I'd go in a cage with a lion. But when you get in the cage with a lion, it's a completely different situation. See, saying something and actually going and doing it is 2 separate things. And I think Billy Joe realized that when he was saying that I had a broken jaw and I'd fight on with a broken eye socket and broken nose and broken, whatever, all the things that he was saying, he realized it's a lot easier saying that than actually going in the ring and doing it. And this is why I don't like to call any fighter a quitter, because fighters are brave people. They're warriors. And that's why I think it was, although Billy Joe's a fighter, I still felt like I don't think Billy Joe should have dug out Daniel Dubois like that. Because Daniel Dubois, let's be honest, Billy Joe said that he fought on with a broken eye socket for 1 minute and 20 seconds after he broke it. Well, Daniel Dubois fought with a broken eye socket. And I believe the eye socket was broken in multiple places as well. For how many rounds? Yeah, he eventually went down on 1 knee, but that was after so many rounds of taking punishment on that eye. And God knows how many rounds fighting on with a broken eye socket, because Daniel Dubois' eye was messed up way before he took a knee. Way before. I reckon his eye socket was broken for a couple of rounds. And let's be honest, Daniel Dubois was fighting a heavyweight. Yeah, Canelo's a big puncher, don't get it wrong. But he's a 168 fighter, and he's not known for having huge knockout power at 168. He's got very good power, don't get me wrong. But he's not a concussive knockout artist like a Wilder. And by the way, Joe Joyce isn't a heavyweight, but he's a heavyweight. He's a 19-stone man, jabbing you or hitting you with a right hand on your eye. That's going to hurt. You know, so it kind of, for me, I think Billy Joe saying the stuff that he did about Daniel Dubois was unfair. But I think people calling Billy Joe a quitter is unfair, because as Billy Joe pointed out, that he's a warrior. You know, he's a warrior. He fought well against Canelo. A lot of people thought he wouldn't do as well as he did. I personally thought he was losing the fight, and I thought Canelo was in control of the fight. But Billy Joe had his moments. He did well in the fight, and I like what Billy Joe did. Listen, I think people that didn't like Billy Joe now have a something to say. Oh yeah, he quit. He ain't got no heart and this that. Listen, man, how many people can go inside a boxing ring and fight on with a broken eye socket, man? The normal Joe Public, they can't. Normal Joe Public will get hit with a shot and they probably won't. They probably won't want to know. Boxing's a very, very difficult sport. Very difficult sport, man. Very, very difficult sport. Even getting punched in the nose when your eye starts watering. See, if you've not been hurt and punched and hit in the stomach and hit, winded, you don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like. I'm telling you, I've been winded before. And honestly, you can't breathe. You can't breathe. This man had a broken eye socket. He said he felt his legs went when he got hit with that shot. But then he realized that, he saw 3 of Canelo in there. And a lot of people that had a broken eye socket say the same thing, that I see 3 of them in there. When your eye socket's smashed, your eye is very, very, it's very sensitive. Imagine like seeing 3 of them in there, not being able to see properly, and then you're in there with Canelo. It's a wise thing not to continue. But, the boxing public is very cruel in the sense that they want to see a guy go out on his shield. Some of the stuff that he got was criticized, but I think a lot of it was because of the way he criticized Daniel Dubois. If he hadn't said anything about Daniel Dubois, I don't think people would have said a lot. I still think he would have got criticism. I still think people would have come out and said what they're saying now is because of, like I said, Billy Joe's rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of public that don't like Billy Joe. Now, there's a lot of his fans from his background, fans, just general people that like the way Billy Joe is. They're defending him. They're still defending him. Oh, he lost to one of the best in the world. He showed he's a warrior, this, that. He was winning the fight, stuff like that. But, fighters have fans that will always back them no matter what. But then they also have detractors that will hate on them no matter what. So, to be honest with you, I think the right decision was made. The right call was made. And I personally think, your life is more important. When you're inside a boxing ring and your life or your health becomes at risk, and what I mean by risk, that there's a chance of you going blind potentially, you shouldn't be in the boxing ring. You shouldn't be fighting. The corner should be pulling you out. And I think the corner made the right decision. Going out against Canelo, what was he going out for? He weren't going to win the fight. He was eventually going to get brutally knocked out with that kind of injury, and he would have probably got his eye damaged. So the right call was made. Right decision was made. A lot of people said, well, he didn't want to go on. Look at his body language. Well, when you've got a broken eye socket, no one's going to be 100%. No one's going to feel like they want to go on. When you've got a broken eye socket, right, and you can't see properly. He was clenching his eye. He couldn't see properly. His body language ain't going to be great. He's going to be in a lot of pain. He can't see properly. It is what it is. It is what it is. The right decision was made. In terms of him considering retirement, look, he may look at it that he's a 2-weight world champion. He's made a shed load of money. He's a multi-millionaire. What is he fighting for? He fought against the best and he lost. What's he fighting for? Now, I personally think that this won't be the last of him if his injury isn't severe. Because I actually think there's big money fights out there. I think the Eubank fight could boil out to be something really big. I think that's a big fight. So I think Billy Joe would, although you'd say that he fought against Canelo and lost and fought the best, you'd say he's leaving a lot of money on the table, especially against Chris Eubank, because that's a big fight. That's a big fight. And to be honest with you, I think they both need each other. Especially if Eubank can beat Andrade, which, he'll be the underdog Eubank. If he can beat Andrade, then that fight becomes massive. Let's be honest. If Eubank can beat Andrade, the Billy Joe and Eubank fight becomes humongous. And Billy Joe not to take that fight, it would be kind of silly. I personally think, you have to take that fight just financially. But Billy Joe may think, I'm a 2-weight world champion. I've already been a world champion at middleweight, right? I've beaten Chris Eubank already. why am I giving him an opportunity to potentially avenge his loss? Because I've got that. I've beat him. So why give him an opportunity to potentially avenge that loss, The only reason you could say is if he wins a world title and Billy Joe looks at it and think that's easy work, which if he beats Andrade, who's got a fairly similar style to Billy Joe, that would show progression for me since the Billy Joe fight. If Chris Eubank beats Andrade and becomes a WBO world champion, then that for me would be a great win, because like I said, that's a style that Eubank struggles against. So if Eubank can beat Andrade, that would be a great win. And also, I would, especially if he looks good in that fight, I would say that, you'd have to say that fight between him and Billy Joe, you may even say that Eubank might go into it as favorite, because Andrade for me is like got a similar style to Billy Joe, similar style. So for me, this is a horrible style for Eubank. This is the style that Eubank struggles against, a slick southpaw, a guy that moves, fast hands. Eubank, for me, hates that kind of style. And Eubank isn't a very big puncher either, and that's the other problem he has. He's not a huge puncher. He's not a guy that's going to get you out of there with one shot. He's a combination puncher but lacks power. So for me personally, I think it's not an easy fight for Eubank, this one. You'd have to favor Andrade just because of, like I said, the styles make fights, and that stylistically isn't a good matchup for Chris Eubank. He struggles against that style. And Billy Joe has that similar type of style. But like I said, if he was to beat Andrade, then for me, that would show progression. That would show that Eubank has come a long way. And like I said, he's working with Roy Jones now. Let's see how much improvement. And like I said, a lot of people look at the Morrison fight. Some people weren't impressed. To be honest, I think those fights are not what you judge Eubank on. You judge Eubank on the Andrade fight, if that fight gets done. Those are the kind of fights where you look at and you say, okay, how much has Eubank come along now since he lost to George Groves and Billy Joe? How much has he come? How far has he come? That's going to prove whether he's a top draw, top level guy. Not a Marcus Morrison fight, but a Andrade fight. That's going to tell us a lot. Has he come a long way? Has he stayed the same? That's the type of fight where we're going to see. But yeah, back to Billy Joe. The right decision was made, guys. The right decision was made. Rightfully, the fight was pulled. Health is wealth. Health is everything. Without health, those millions that he made don't mean anything. And like I said, I think boxing's just a sport. There's no point of risking your life, risking your health, when you've given it your best shot and you got beat by the better man. Canelo was a substantial favorite in that fight for a reason. And I said this prior to the fight. He was a substantial favorite. The resume that he's got, the experience, the amount of world level fighters that he's fought. Billy Joe didn't have that experience. I don't think he had, more so the injury. I just don't think Billy Joe had that experience of being in there with someone like Canelo, being at that level. He's hardly fought world class. He's hardly fought any world class fighters. Maybe one or two. And those guys were like, decent, decent fighters, not like exceptional world champions, even like a Charlo, for example. They weren't as good as Charlo or Andrade or Caleb Plant or, David Benavidez. They were kind of like, they were decent fighters, the guys that he beat, like Andy Lee, David Lemieux. But all of these guys, like I said, the names that I just taken, you'd expect those guys to beat the guys that Billy Joe beat. So I just think Billy Joe hasn't operated at the level that he should have operated at, and that really hindered him going into this Canelo fight. And the inactivity as well. The inactivity didn't help. I don't think he was active enough during his prime years. And I just think that combined with the lack of experience, I think Canelo was always going to be a substantial favorite. And, the fight showed in the end. It showed in the fight. But nevertheless, it's great that Billy Joe is in good spirits. I hope Billy Joe doesn't retire. But again, like I said, we don't know the extent of the injury. So hopefully, him and Eubank, if Eubank can beat Andrade, because it looks like that Andrade fight might happen. If Eubank beats Andrade, then a Billy Joe fight would be massive. Just imagine Eubank wins a world title. Him and Billy Joe would sell out a stadium. You know, at 40, 50,000 easy. Good undercard. You know, you'd be able to sell out, you know, a stadium. So personally, I think there's a big fight there for both of them. I think that makes sense. And then the winner can probably go on and fight a big name. You know, maybe if it's Billy, maybe not a Canelo again, but maybe a Golovkin. You know, that'd be a big fight. You know, so, and who knows, maybe Canelo comes back down to middleweight and looks to clean up there, and Billy Joe might get another. Who knows? Who knows? I don't think Billy Joe will get another fight with Canelo unless he was to, you know, do something exceptional at middleweight or something where, you know, where Canelo wants to fight for, you know, an undisputed middleweight title. But yeah, I do think it's going to be hard for Billy to come back and become world champion, especially with the current middleweight world champions. You know, Morata's going to fight Golovkin. Golovkin's, for me, should win that fight. And then, you know, I wouldn't favor Billy Joe against Golovkin even now. I think Golovkin would beat him. I think Golovkin punches too hard. He's too tough. And with that injury now, Golovkin's style for me would be all wrong. So yeah, and even Charlo's very dangerous. Andrade would be a tough fight. So yeah, I think it's going to be hard for Billy Joe. It's going to be hard for Billy Joe. So I don't know. Maybe he may walk away. I would like to see him fight Chris Eubank just because I think the spectacle, the event would be great. But again, why would Billy Joe want to fight Eubank again? He's beat him already. So I don't know. I don't know. Just let's see what Billy Joe decides to do. But leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And guys, remember to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.